ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody in between.
He's your favorite Mexican-American Gemini from South Texas. It's Chibbi.
And she's the lipstick-loving Salvadorican from Brooklyn, New York. It's Raqui.
And this is Words and Shit,
the show where you get to know the person behind the poetry.
Brought to you by Write Art Out.
Hey, Raqui.
Hi, Chibbi. How you doing?
I mean, this is my favorite part of the week. I think y'all know that. So I'm right now doing fantastic. But boy, has it been a week.
It always is. It's always a week, right? I feel like I'm just a broken record every time I come on. And I'm like, another thing that just happened. Another thing, another catastrophe, another disaster, something that we're always reacting to. I think I'm kind of really tired of just being on the reactionary kind of end of this whole entire year. I just don't want to continuously react, right? But here we are.
Here we are, another week in America. Our hearts go out to everybody in Boulder, Colorado, that's been affected by this mass shooting. And it's just, like you said, yeah, every week it's something. And it's been a year, if we're being honest, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of times in times like these, like people turn to religion, to faith, their spirituality, to prayer, to try and find some comfort, right? Some comfort, or at least some hope in times like this. And I'm not a very religious person per se. I grew up in the Catholic faith and then said no. I do consider myself very spiritual in sense, but my mom is very much of the practicing kind of the faith. And so she is constantly giving us little, like little medallitas with the Santos, or like little cards, little pins of angels to put in our car. Every time that like we leave on a roadkill, she's like, okay, mijito, we'll see you next time. En nombre del Padre, el Hijo, Espíritu Santo. I'm like, okay. And even though I don't practice that faith, I do believe in the protective power of the mom and mom's energy. And so whatever she puts her energy towards, I will receive it. We have the medallitas on our doors all over the place, because I think that energy is so important and vital and like just flows through us, so.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same way. I think when people are like, are you religious? And I go, well, I was raised Catholic. And they're like, that was an yes or no. I was like,
it's a complicated answer.
So complicated, right? It's, especially when you're Catholic, you're raised Catholic, and you're it's so funny because I feel like I was raised Catholic, but my mom was like really chill, and she's like, yeah, it's the thing to do as a Latino. We send you to Catholic school, right? Some type of Christian Catholic school. So for the majority of like when I was little, I was definitely in that religion. But and I think actually going to Catholic school really helped me as an English major, because there's so many like, and thought, I can't speak today. Metaphors, right? I want to say metaphors. I want to say that a lot of writers use from the Bible. But I exactly the same way. Like my abuelita, she gives me like this rosary that I put on my car. Like I like bless myself, right? And I like touch it. I was like, yes, protect myself. It's always interesting when people come visit me. So this is like one of my rooms, and you can see there's like a cross, and people are like, are you religious? And I'm like, no, but it was my grandmother's. And if you see it in the middle, it's like a brown woman who's like surrounded by other women. And I think that's amazing. And obviously you see the Virgen. Yeah, I
know. I was gonna say more than that. I love your little esqueleto Virgen in the back. And you just had me thinking about like every time you go on a road trip, like touching the little rosary. We used to say que era Sagrado Corazón del Buen Camino, que lleguemos con bien a nuestro destino. Okay, let's go. These little prayers that like, even though I'm not of the practicing faith, it's the intention behind it, right? It's the energy and the intention that we put behind it that casts this like protective aura around us. I love that Ivory says that that's my family too. Y'all, if you're watching this and you're like, toda mi vida, let us know.
I definitely do. I do love that. I love this energy that they're like constantly protecting you. My favorite thing since I've been in New York is going around with other like Puerto Ricans, and they're like bendiciones. I'm like, when I leave, I'm like, thank you, blessings, bendiciones.
I will take them, please. We need all the bendiciones we could possibly get this year. And I am so excited to have on today's poet, on that because she has written an entire book that I almost dropped. Dedicated to La Virgen. A lot of her work does kind of touch on that, and as well as like the growing up in the Mexican community and things like that. So I also can't think of a better way to end Women's History Month than by having on our poet today. So today we have none other than Natalia Trevino. Natalia was born in Mexico City and grew up in Texas, where her mother taught her Spanish and Bert and Ernie gave her the lessons in English. Her work captures the voices and lives of women who emerge despite everything that works tirelessly against them. Natalia has won several awards for her poetry and fiction, including the 2004 Alfredo Cisneros del Moral Award, the 2008 Dorothy Sargent Rosenberg Poetry Prize, and the 2012 Literary Award from the Artist Foundation of San Antonio. She graduated with a BA and a master's from your alma mater, Raqui, the University of Texas of San Antonio, and graduated from...
Beep, beep.
I'm sorry. When I found out that this was the Roadrunner, I was like, Mimi. It just goes across. Going on. She also graduated from the University of Nebraska's MFA program in creative writing in 2010. Natalia's poems have appeared in several publications, including Border Senses, Borderlands Texas Poetry Review, the Houston Literary Review, Sugar House Review, Silver of Stone, Burnt District, Voices de la Luna, and North Texas State's Inheritance of Light, and is the author of 2 poetry collections, Lavando la Dirty Laundry and Virgen X. Y'all, show some love in the comments section and help us welcome to the stage Natalia Trevino.
Wow, you guys are so much fun. I could watch you all night long. Thank you so much for making me a part of this program, and I love how you began thinking about what this year is, what this year means to us, how it keeps kicking our butt, and how you said, Raquel, reacting. You know, how do we cope? How does our energy not get so depleted when we're reacting? And then if we think about the world like that, then we will get very tired, and we are tired. Who isn't tired right now?
Exactly.
So,
it's always reacting, and then it's like, do we even have time to process, or does like run our body, our soul have time to process? And really, because these are really traumatic events, you know, so are we processing this trauma correctly, you know, for us to heal?
Exactly.
Yeah. How much are we going to harbor in our bodies for years to come, even after, you know, some of this is behind us? Because I've drank a lot of tequila. And let's just put it that way.
Tequila and language, actually. Because your body is processing when it speaks, when it tells its story. And so one of the things, and when you're writing, of course. So one of the things that we've got to do, it's not in our construct, it's not in our society. There's probably a million apps for it, but it really is taking the time to step back and reflect and write it or say it. My best friend is having a cup of coffee with somebody I really admire. And that's it. That's what I have come to. That's all that matters. And this is like a really great cup of coffee being with you today.
Oh, that's so great. I think that's a perfect way to segue to our next, you know, how we really introduce this segment, or before we get to know you and your poetry. Every time a poem comes in, what I do is we're going to be sharing a lot of intimate stories. And at this point, I do want to consider you as a friend, or welcome you in the space as a friend. So with that in mind, you know, I ask all my friends, so how's your heart today? It could be today, this year, this month, this week. We just want to know, like, how's your heart doing?
Well, it's racing, and it's racing because I'm here and I'm excited to be here. It's warm, warmed by the fact that I think a long time ago I chose work that I knew would always comfort me and warm me. When I became an English major, I was about 19 or 18, and my dad was terrified that I was going to live in total poverty.
Yes.
And I really thought that I was going to be homeless if I became an English major. And then I decided, I had a vision, and I realized that if I'm living under a bridge, I will have a blanket of books to keep me warm. And no one will want my books because, you know, people are not into it. Who wants to steal a bunch of books from a homeless lady. And I imagine those books literally keeping me warm and feeding me and teaching me to be a writer, which I knew that would warm me. So my heart is really in a warm and stable place because I've chosen work that was risky, according to my dad, but it wasn't in the end. And also would feed that, I guess, that eternal curiosity. But yeah, lots of terrible things happen today. I can't even start. It's only 7 o'clock. And keep going.
Yeah. Well, we're so happy to have you here for this hour that we're going to be together. And hopefully this hour is a cleansing hour for us all, like you said, coming back to the language and the poetry and all of this that allows us to just kind of like shake away the evil of the day and just kind of sit in this beautiful space together with you. So
thank you so much.
Yeah.
And speaking to one another is absolutely not just metaphorically cleansing. It's literally taking what's in our mind, and we'll talk about that after, but letting it out.
I wrote down your quote. I was like, we're going to talk about language is how the body processes. Like, what? I want to get to that, but let's get started with a little segment that we like to call speed dating. It just allows us to get the audience get to know you really quickly. It's just a series of 4 questions. Feel free to answer them as in-depthly or as concise as you feel necessary to answer them. Okay. So first question, and I'm just assuming you have an answer to this because of your book that I read today. But first question. Who's your favorite Santo? Who's your favorite saint?
Oh, my favorite saint. Wow. Well, that's a complicated one because who is a deity and who is a saint among us, And I didn't, like you, I grew up with a Catholic tradition in Mexico, but my parents here in the U.S. were like, they thought that there was a lot of hypocrisy in the Catholic Church, so they made sure I got baptized. They made sure I got my first communion, and they were out. So I didn't grow up with this saint and saints' days in my consciousness. It's only later when I started working with La Virgen that I understood more about all the things you were talking about earlier, Raquel. The literature and the importance of it in American and British literature, which is what I studied, and how understanding who these saints were and how they were working on, these writers, that became more interesting. So I don't have a great answer. My spiritual person that I really like a lot is Our Lady.
just so you know, whatever answer you have is the right answer. Okay, because this is your show.
Perfect. I think that's like great that you said Our Lady. In your writing, you definitely talk about being a mother, and you mentioned your maternal figures in your writings. So I want to know, like, if you can name one, who is the one maternal figure that you admire? Oh, no. Can you hear me?
The one maternal figure that I admire?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The most, I'm assuming.
Yes.
It's the most of the most. My abuelita Socorro, my mother's mom, she's the great inspiration of so much of my work. This is rooted in my deep friendship with her and my procrastinated grief after her passing. I was accustomed to her living on the other side of the border, so I would shut off. It's like when you talk to a friend that you don't talk to very often, you keep going and then you come back and then everything's alive again and you're together again and you pick up where you left off. And that's what it was for me and my abuelita. And she was such a good listener, and she also made fun of me beautifully. She made fun of the way I spoke. I cracked her up. She thought I was funny. How do you not admire that person the most? And she always called me mi reina, and no one called me that. Come on. But I know what she was tapping into now that I've spent time with her favorite maternal figure, which would be Our Lady. And so definitely my abuelita Socorro, and then her little sister Licha, who was in Lavando La Dirty Laundry, and it's always guiding me also.
I love that so much. And I just want to let people that are watching know. So like Eric just gave us a question. We're going to write that question down. We're definitely going to get to it later. So send your questions through the comments, people, because we will get to them. This is my favorite question to ask. I ask it every show. And sometimes it's a really quick and easy answer. And sometimes it's a hard one. Okay. So the question is, what is your favorite dish?
Oh, favorite?
To eat. Someone was like, teacup? No.
Mustache cup? My favorite dish to eat would be arroz mexicano. I mean, there's just nothing better. And it's not nutritious. It's impossible to put down. It goes with everything. And when it's in that perfect golden red color and has the peas in it and a little bit of corn maybe, and it's made with fresh tomatoes, and that's where the red color comes from, and not the the Northwest Vista. It's just absolute divinity to me.
The Puerto Rican in Raquel is having a moment, but I will share.
That's fine. It's okay. It's okay. It's different. We all, were raised with different rice. Actually, low-key, I don't really particularly care for rice, but arroz con gandules is my favorite. But that is the way that, whatever. But so, I think talking about even rice, it's like the sense of home and belonging, right? Just food in general, traditional food. So, definitely, I know we talked a little bit about this, but what does home look and feel like for you?
Oh, wow. What does home look and feel like for me? There's so many physical places that home feels like for me. And one of those places absolutely is tied to my abuelita Socorro's house, which was 2 houses away from a mechanic's garage and that became a bus garage. And my grandfather was a mechanic. And so the smells of gasoline and grease, I'm like, yes. Oh, I mean, they remind me of being surrounded by love and family, and they're not the most pleasant smells necessarily, and they're not really good for the environment, I know, but those smells bring me home. And also sometimes writers are afraid of the blank page, and I used to be afraid of the blank page. I remember in 5th grade, a friend of mine gave me a beautiful journal. She knew I liked to write, and had one of those pretty puffy covers and cloth. It was a cloth purple cover, and it was all. I couldn't write in it. I was all constipated. I was like, I can't mar it with some stupid thing that's going to come out of my pen. So it was empty for years. And then one day I decided I could write on the 2nd page because I wouldn't ruin the book. And I started writing a list of something. I don't know what it was. I never filled that book. But now the empty page is a home because I know I can trust I know I can trust the page and feel safe. Because you can rip it up. No, I'm kidding.
But you can. Yeah.
Because I've allowed myself to not enter a page with having judgment against myself, that it is a place for me to release, to process, and to learn. I mean, when we write, we learn. And that's probably why a lot of us like to write so much.
I love that. We both love that. I'm loving everything, and we're only 20 minutes in. Okay.
I know. And I'm just saying, like, even thank you so much for even like the first part, because you're really describing my childhood. My grandfather was also a mechanic, and my grandmother's house in New Jersey, where like I was basically almost raised, was also between a gas station and a mechanic shop. So those smells are also home for me. So I'm like, wow, someone else is having this like same feelings of home. So this is, wow, I'm already so invested and emotional already.
There we go. There we go. Well, usually we only do 4 questions for speed dating, but somebody that's watching in the audience sent over a question that I think works for their speed dating segment. So let's just get it going. Who is your favorite author?
Oh, that's hard, and that probably changes, depending on where I'm sitting and where I am at the moment. And I think today, because of I haven't finished her work, and I keep learning every time I reread the work I'm already familiar with, and I feel like there's an entire horizon with this author in front of me as a teacher and a model and a poet and a leader, and that would be Gloria Anzaldúa. Very much so. She is just, and what she does for my students, it's just so beautiful. I mean, the transformation they experience when they read her, I keep falling in love with her every single time. So I'm so grateful for her work and for her badassness and just how she just dropped all the walls and rules and really said, come here, you belong here.
Yes, hearts for that one, says Vincent Cooper. I'm teaching a 4-part workshop, and at the end of every session, I give them home fun assignments to go look up an author that they may not be familiar with, and Gloria was the first one. I'm like, week 1, I'm like, y'all need to go look up Gloria, okay? Go learn yourself.
Yeah, you really could. I mean, really, exactly.
So wonderful. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Okay, so we're going to get into more conversation in a little bit, but right now we want to get into the words, get into the language. So we're going to duck out of here and hand the show over to you. Before we do, people, you're already using the comment section, but again, this is a live show for a reason. We want that interaction happening. So use the comment section to show some love. Natalia is going to bless you with some of her work. So if you're living for it, quote her in the comment section, ask your questions. We'll write them down. We'll make sure we get them to her. So at this point, Natalia, if you could please bless us with some poetry.
Oh, that's really beautiful. Thank you so much, T. And I thank you, anyone and everyone who is participating and listening. I wanted to start with the first poem in Virgin X, because you might wonder why Virgin X? What is that? And is this woman really religious? And it's not, the book isn't about me. Poetry isn't about me. It's about that cleansing that we're talking about, that subjectivity and that discovery. And La Virgen, what I discovered when I started becoming interested in her is that she does not have one identity. She has so many. She also busts the walls open with her multiple appearances, multiple names, multiple identities, over 22,000. And when I started working with her and being inspired to write about her, I thought, I'll find out about each virgin and write a poem about each one. And that was completely impossible. So Virgin X has to do with her not being a single identity and multiplying all over the world. So I decided to write Latin X to give, of course, to talk about what I've discovered about the Latin letter X, and how it plays a little bit with our concept of Latinx that we have, giving a nod to all the awareness that is happening as we are understanding multiple non-binary identities. So Latinx, and this is for Natalie Diaz, who is this poem I started in a class of hers. She's amazing. We learn X represents fishbone, removed from head and tail, rib cage meant to swim the full weight of the oldest bodied creatures, so they could glide, eat, fuck as if in flight. Mysteries of the alphabet shows early glyphs of X as crooked ladder. Vertebrae deprived of muscle, skin, and fur, deprived of face or scales, without teeth, without tongue. X is 10, number for digits, spot on a map, oblique signature, my grandmother's. Her X, a skinned cross turned on its side, lacking the sheath of letters, of cursive, those curves that would allow her to read the full sadness of her name, Dolores. Letters without cilia, providing locomotion to the seas of hurts and light that would come. My friends say Latinx, conquer nomenclature, replace the A, the oldest drawing for ox, encompass O, earliest signifier of ojo, eye, O carved into the soft stone to say, see this here, see. We have Malcolm, lady, generation. X must have been the first to equal MC squared. 24th letter. This carving of an eaten rib rack had lived in order to order the direction of organelles and skins taut length, of cuts of bodies we quarter and grill, of gills, of wordless, motherless bodies we cage in cages made of wire, X's at the border of lungs, holding them in place, insisting on the melt of soft tissue, of knife bone survival. So that poem, not directly related to La Virgen, but I hope expanding this idea of the X and why that's before her name as I enter different areas of her. One of the projects I'm working on now, my study of her first was personal, dealing with grief after losing my grandmother, grief that came really late, procrastinated grief. And then it became academic as I was learning the theologies and the histories of La Virgen. And then I was struck with a life-changing event. It became spiritual, quite a spiritual meditation for me. And one of those is studying and understanding the 7 sorrows of Mary, which are 7 moments in her life where she was really sad, Dolores. And I have a grandmother, Maria de Dolores, so that resonates with me. And so what I've done with this project is I've created what I'm going to call a bracelet of sonnets, or maybe a rosary of sonnets with the 7 sorrows. And so I'll read one of them. And it's about the first sorrow, and I'll tell you what it is. The first sorrow is what the prophecy of Simon spoken to Mary, telling her about the birth of the baby, and before the baby was even born. And he said, a sword will pierce through your own soul also, that thoughts out of many hearts may be revealed. And I had to wonder, what is thoughts out of many hearts will be revealed? Basically, she was going to find out what jerks people were going to be to her son. That's not a good thing for a mom to think about, but every mom has to think that their child will go through pain, and that's what this first sorrow is about. Revealed like the surface of a dog's freckled tongue as she pants under the sun, the pink silk lilt of it undulated to hold a drop of water at a time, her open maw, harmless, but still its sharp enamel points could open a body she should want. And for what so much revealing, Simon? Why use the sword, the words, thoughts of many hearts to frighten her. Those sharp enameled points, logical weapon for self-loathing, turned to another's body, to one which encourages reflection on sin, unlocking the desire to open a body, to reveal the slow matter of its decay on a bus, curb, or cross. The desire that brings every mother her first sorrow the first time she holds her baby's timorous body. And if I pray this right, I am to remember that I too pierce her soul. The pink silk lilt of her, the fullness of her grace, the moment she knew the future end of her child, that he would die this particular way, newborn, and her body still seething, wound, wash rag between her legs to hold the holy ruby of her new drippings, the shimmering and ripped womb foretelling the luster inside the hearts of so many. The crowd's call for burn, blood, and ash, the revelation of her son's unfolding skins, the latent prowlers haunched for years, kill in their sights, their desire to chew on tart blood, the knees' steady pressure on the neck, the insatiable want of easy, the state as the hearts of the people as its blood-soaked hands. The sorrows are dark, so I know. And also written during this time we're in now, where we are thinking so much about anti-racism and the cost of racism in our lives and in our communities. So I'm going to read a poem that is a little bit more. It's a moment of lightness in the life of La Virgen. It's not one of the sonnets. It's very different. It's called Illuminated. And so there's a lot of images of La Virgen where she receives knowledge that she is going to be mom, the big mama, right? God's mom. And they always show her the book of prayer, and she's very prayerful. And sometimes there's this light coming to her head, which is the information that she's getting, the Annunciation. And of course, it comes with an angel talking to her. Great stuff. So lots of paintings about this. This particular poem is after the painting called Annunciation with Saint Emidius, can't say his name, by Carlo Crivelli, an Italian painter, Italian Renaissance painter. So it's called Illuminated, and it's in the voice of the Virgin, La Virgen, learning that she's going to be this bigger part of something. An access, a beam from the clouds lit my head as I bent over the book sometimes. A thread of radiance, like a silk through a needle that dropped down and pierced my head to lift out my eye, suspended in a room of white petals of ocotillo blossoms, fingering the sky after rain. My lungs suddenly awake, not with breath or the making of breath. Sometimes with the book, the endless dark sky became a teal green cloth, a velvet I could fold around my body, and my eye escaped to sway above us both. Me, dust, a flicker, afloat in the shine. How some of the thickest prayers measured the smallness of this day, packaged the words just this way, cut through the thicket of being a woman, of wanting a child, of bloating with child, of fetching water, wine, butter, of long hours spent waiting for dough to billow and bake. I was near the pool of sleep, nearly bored when it happened, thought it mere rain on my head when I learned light, earth, and her bright water had been aware of me all this time, knew of me. So this is the last poem. It's a little lighter, getting into a more secular world. Like I said, the Catholic Church has written me out because I remarried someone. Apparently I'm going to hell. So I understand that. But still, La Virgen goes beyond the Catholic Church too. I'm a teacher, and it's my last poem. And I teach creative writing. Thank God. It's so much fun. And this is called Classroom Meltdown. Ruben Tiong brought 20 bags of ice to creative writing class today. Give us a prompt, I assign. It can be anything. Jessica began with 3 minutes of drumming. A way to hear our hearts, she said, and write. Quinn, a short film about a nihilistic horse who, in suit and tie, jumps off a bridge. Today, we have an ice chest full of Ziploc bags holding white frozen crescents, one baggie for each of us. Hold your bag anywhere, he said. Write down what it does to you. Said he took baths in ice after jujitsu, immersed his body in ice until it went numb. Made him quiet, made him think. Robert leaned back in his chair, draped the limp bag over his forehead. Kayla held it to her neck, quick to observe. It hurts in some parts of the body, not others. Like the way some stuff might hurt some people and not others, she said, hunting for her metaphor. You don't want the ice near your heart. This is true. Our bodies teach us to see. Mine liquefied between my hand and my sore right chin. I'm a runner now, have been running for 3-4 times a week, hitting the pavement alone since June, since the guy at the gym asked me if I had back surgery recently or leg surgery, or if I wore high heels a lot, if that's why I ran like that. You were overpronating, he said in front of the class. It took months for me to run my first mile without panicking, without lungs bursting, without quitting. Have been running for months now. For years, actually, running out of ideas. Running late to class with all of my weight on the inside edge of my left foot, all of my life, I suppose. Running to a glass of wine, to a seat on a plane, running out of time, running into the heat of my husband's chest, into the self-loathing only a mother can know, or a disappointing daughter. Running with a fire at the end of my pin, my torch to connect one heart to another, one word at a time. Forge a red table by an open window where our bread and heat and light are enough to share and thaw the frozen rivers between us. How this Ziploc bag holding this ice dissolved on our desk as we wrote, melted in unison with the pens dripping ink on our papers, on our clothes, each desk holding a tiny, glistening poem, a reflective lake. Thank you.
Applause, applause, applause for the poet.
That's the most amazing applause. Fabulous.
We're living in a virtual world. We do what we can.
Beautiful. You're beautiful. We love it.
Wow. Really, I don't know where to begin. I feel like we have our list of questions every time we come in, but That was breathtaking. Thank you so much. I think it was just very healing. It was definitely something that I didn't know I needed to hear, but I'm glad that I did. I'm understanding your sorrow, but I'm also understanding your joy, and I'm understanding like the blessings that your family and your home and what your words give not only to you but to the audience as well. So thank you so much for that.
Oh, Raquel, thank you. Come move in.
You're not the only one that wants her to move back to San Antonio, okay? I, like you, Raquel, just like as she was going through her poems, I'm going through the questions that we prepared, and I'm like, I don't even know where to begin. There's so much I want to dive into. So Raquel, first question's yours. Bye.
I know. I know. And I saw that. I was like, it's mine. I think let's go first with like your sorrows. Let's go, let's talk about this path to healing, right?
Yeah.
I know when you're talking about your sorrows, you read the first sorrow, and you were saying that was heavy and it was sad, but at the same time, I think healing is not, it's ugly sometimes. It's not easy, and especially like, I think the moment that you said it was the first right of a mother to experience the sorrow, right? In your poem, I think that is so poignant of what we're trying to talk about. So let me, let's talk about a little bit more why you were focused on the sorrows, which sorrow was the hardest to write about, and then how has it helped you to heal yourself?
Well, I think I could tell you years ago, one of my tias probably heard me talking about being worried about my son. And she's like, oh, you need to pray a novena. And she gave me this little pamphlet. And I was like, and what's a novena? And I don't do that. And after I started studying La Virgen, and it really, when I started studying the miracles associated with La Virgen, I understood why my grandmother was so dedicated to her, because La Virgen gets stuff done.
Yes.
Period. Like, she's in there, she's helping, she's interceding. She's like hands-on, making the tortillas and making them taste good, And so I understood my grandmother so much more when I was learning about her miraculous nature. And then there was a time when I really was worried about my son. He was going through some difficult time trying to choose between, what he's going to do with his life. And it was really hard because he's choosing between artist and science. And the same question I had, right, which is, I'm going to be homeless if I become an English major. So I just decided to go for it. And somebody mentioned the 7 sorrows, and I just decided to look them up. And there is literally an ad at the beginning of the link that I saw that's like, guaranteed results. If you play these 7 sorrows, she will come in and be fixing things. And I said, well, why not? We'll try this. So I started reading them, and then I, each night, and I would let them put me to sleep and take them in. And they do make you reflect, because right after you read the sorrow, you are supposed to meditate on what a bad person you are. And I'm like,
how very Catholic. Yeah, how very Catholic.
Wait, what, you want me to feel guilty for that? So I was questioning the sorrows as I was working on them. But let me tell you, the boy had some epiphanies like 3 days into my 7 sorrows journey. And I just kept going. I said, well, this is obviously working. So I'm gonna keep doing this, and of course connecting to my grandmother and how she would have done something like this. So I started taking my sorrows with me, honestly, on my runs, because I don't listen to music. I meditate and I think out loud, and I solve problems and I practice stuff. And they also got to keep the mind occupied so that you don't think about your sore right chin and shin. And so I started adapting the sorrows to what I want to say in response to the fact that La Virgen had this painful experience. And I think one of the reasons why so many women connect to her is because she is a mom. Punto. As you were saying earlier, Chibbi, you believe in the mother love, the protective love of your mother giving you bendiciones or caring, because there's like something super powerful about mother love. And I think that tapping into her mother love through my own experience as a mother and feeling that kind of love, that cosmic love, and then trying to see how it also relates to mothers who've been through such incredible losses.
Yeah.
I have been through some losses with motherhood, having lost 3 pregnancies, three babies. And so it's not the same. I know that, but they're equally and even each one more devastating than the previous one, which you would think, why don't you get used to it?
Never.
So, and I recognized, okay, that part of my life has to no more. But so my sonnets are my own, I guess they're manifesting my own response to those sorrows. And as far as healing and what you're talking about, how does healing and language work together? Thank God I ran into Santo Cisneros after I experienced a tragic loss of a friend. And I was broken and really sad. And then I had just won this award. And I was like, oh, will you read my poems? And she just said, look, as long as you're creating anything, un trapito, ponte a tejer, draw something, make a dress, make a pretty plate, make a table, make something that will heal you. Keep doing it. Don't give up. And that was like earth-shattering to me. I didn't even know that writing and creativity were healing. I knew they were therapeutic, but I just hadn't put the 2 together.
Yeah.
And then, thank goodness, years later, she came to one of my classes to talk to the girls at the Bexar County Juvenile Detention Center. And she said to the girls, writing is medicine, and it helps you take the glass out of your heart. And sometimes it's a really big piece of glass, and you got to write a lot to get every little shard out of your heart, and keep writing, keep writing. This is how you're going to do it. And when she said that, I was like, Maga, thank you. Because what she did, and it's what you talked about earlier, Raquel, the power of metaphor. When you picture writing as that surgical improvement of the heart or healing of the heart, yeah, it's painful. The heart's going to bleed when you take something out of it, no doubt. You have to go into the wound to heal the wound. It's a very painful process. But going into the wound allows you to see through it, and the experience lets you get closer to it, and it starts to lose its power. That's my opinion.
I can't wait to read it, because now you submitted one of the sorrows to the anthology that we published last week, and I told you it wrecked me. Absolutely wrecked me. And then this is the second one that I hear. I can't wait until you complete them and put it together. I'm first in line for that, because you have such a wonderful way of kind of processing emotion and conveying it in a way to where you kind of hold our hand as we walk through this very, very painful moment. Yeah. So yeah, I can't wait for that to finish. And I love how you just casually was
me that.
No, go ahead.
I think I spoke over you, so I lost what you just said there.
I said, go ahead.
Yesterday I was saying to you that I'm struggling with the sorrows 6 and 7. They deal directly with the crucifixion and the body, her facing the body, and how terrible we must all feel that we caused this to happen to her, which is what the 7 sorrows would tell you to feel. Which, humanity is capable of atrocities, as we well know, which is why we're constantly reacting to the atrocities, which are always in our face because we're always connected in our social media and in our world. We're so connected to each other now. So I am struggling to finish that project, but I am. What I need is the quiet time to let that go through.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, when it does come out, and I know that we have a lot of people that will probably be like first in line to get it. So we're looking forward to it. Like I said to you yesterday when we talked, I mean, take the time that you need because it's not hard. It's not easy getting into that headspace or getting out of it. But clearly what you've done so far is phenomenal. And what I was going to say is like, I just love how you were just like, oh yeah, me and Sandra, when I ran into her at HEB, essentially, you know, so casual.
Yeah.
She is such a generous, kind friend and person, and does run into people at HEB and just starts, giving them poetry books. And if you're having tacos with her or on your way to one of her favorite tacos is the Dairy Queen taco. And one night we were trying to go get some and they were closed, and we were like, oh, what are we gonna do? And so we ended up going to a different taqueria, and the little waitress, she was giving her books of poetry. And she was like, you sign it too, Natalia. And I was like, I'm not in that book. She goes, yeah, but you'll be in it one day. Just sign it. Tell this girl that she needs to go to college and she needs to do this. And she really opens up to people quite generously. And that I'm so grateful to have someone in my life that's like that, as a teacher, as a mentor, and to say, hey, she's really a kind person.
Yeah,
I love it. I one of my mentors, because I went to UTSA, got my BA and master's in English as well, so I was in the same program. So you probably know Dr. Sonia Saldiva Ho, right? And she would always yeah. So she would always call Sandra Cisneros La Sandra, and I'm like, La Sandra,
Es que la Sandra es muy cabrona.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, when I was at UTSA, it was really, Sonia was not there, and nor was there a single Latino in my program. Never did I have a single Latino professor in my entire life.
In San Antonio.
In San Antonio. And I graduated from there in 92 or 93. I mean, y'all were babies. Y'all were probably Sonia. So that's okay, because the program, every time they would ask us to fill out, would you come to a PhD program? I would always say yes, because I wanted UTSA to grow in that direction. And then they did grow their PhD program, and they did start they did the focus on border and Mexican American studies and Latin studies. So they really brought in Norma and Sonia and so many greats, Ben Holguin, so many people that changed the whole complexion, literally, of La UTSA.
Yeah, it really did. And that was going to be one of my other questions of like, how you being in that program. And I didn't recently, but it's been like 4 years since I graduated from my MA program there. And I just know that UTSA's program had one of the most like Latino or Latinx professors in all the nation at the time, and their PhD was like known for a focus in Chicana and Latina literature. So I want to say thank you for filling out those surveys. Because of you, I was able to have a lot of like mentors and professors. So I appreciate you also creating that pathway for students like me and my other colleagues and cohorts. So
I think, and it was me and my friend, we were all saying, yes, say yes, let's let this program grow. And so, no, I won't take credit for it, but now I will for a minute.
For a minute. Like I said at the top, this is your show. All right. Yeah. Everything you say is right and valid. So you talked a little bit about what you're working on with the Seven Sorrows, which is some forthcoming work. I want to talk about your last book, Virgen X, which I devoured today. Absolutely. Like I went out on my back porch. It was a beautiful day in San Antonio. I know, Rocky, you're up in New York, but it was a beautiful spring day in San Antonio. Okay. All right, good. So I sat out on my back porch. My dog was like making sure that our vegetable garden doesn't get attacked by squirrels. And I just devoured this book and absolutely loved it. You answered one of my questions in terms of like why when you read your first poem. But I want to, like, you really take us on a journey in this book. It really goes so many places, especially in that poem, I'm going to say this wrong. Coatlicue? Coatlicue. I did not expect where that poem was. Like, it just took us on this journey. It had this like Jack Kerouac on the road vibe where it just like kept going and going and going. And there were layers and layers and like so much to it that by the time I finished the book, I just like sat there and was like, I think I need to call my mom. There's a lot to it. So I guess, where I'm going is like, what was the process of putting this together? Because clearly there was a ton of research. You clearly did a ton of travel. It is such a both in-depth and expansive, but also concise collection of like everything that Our Lady, La Virgen, is.
Well, thank you for saying that you wanted to call your mother. That is what it says on page 21, actually. But the process of this book, like I said, it started with this actual work of art that's on the cover. I just scrolled on my Facebook one day. It's a pencil drawing by J. Michael Walker. And I saw this image and I had such a visceral reaction to it. I started crying. I didn't understand why I was crying. And I started to look at it and analyze it and think, why is this painting having this effect on me? Because I was not, I'm barely a lukewarm Catholic. And
I'm stealing that. I'm sorry.
I didn't understand it. But it was like seeing my own grandmother in this room, in a room like the room she had in Mexico, a twin bed, a pink cover, doing some embroidery on the side of the bed. The posture of La Virgen here, the little tennis shoes is my abuelita Raquel, who only wore tennis shoes. But my abuelita Socorro only wore dresses, never put a pair of pants on in her life. And did have this little calendar in her wall, that little Mexican calendar, and did have a big picture of Jesus on her, bedroom wall as well. Of course, in this case, it's her son, so that makes it even. But it just, I don't know, the posture, the incredible power of this image made me want to understand, why does this image matter so much to me? So it was such a visceral, emotional response that the only way to deal with something like that is through poetry, because otherwise you're choked up, you're clogged up, you don't understand something, and we're used to living in a world where we don't understand everything. We constantly don't understand something, right? We live in the gap between understanding something, wanting something, and not having either. And we're somewhere in between that at all times. But at least through poetry, we can stick our arm out and reach and learn something new by entering poetry. So it was such a powerful emotional beginning that I had to go back and say, well, which Virgen was my grandmother really into? My cousins all said, La Virgen de Guadalupe, Mensa. And, but that's not the Virgen I saw my grandmother interacting with. I saw her interacting with La Virgen de San Juan de los Lagos. So I was literally Googling Virgin, blue, looks like a rocket ship, to figure out which Virgin my grandmother was praying to. We become approximate with poetry. Thank you, Carolina. Yeah, no kidding. Exactly. Thank you for being here, Carolina. And Levi, I saw you. Thank you so much. And Mauricio. So I had to learn, well, who was this Virgen? Why was my grandmother so into her? And when I learned about this Virgin, I realized my grandmother was alive through some of those miracles that are very well documented, associated with her. The miracle of what happened in San Juan, Texas, the miracle of what happened in Guadalajara, which is not in this book, but it has to do with bringing the Virgen de San Juan to Texas. Major miracles. It literally had to do with La Virgen migrating over here. And my grandmother was alive in the 50s when the Guadalajara miracle happened, and she was alive in the 70s when the San Juan miracle happened. And I said, I just have to, just writing it down in plain English was poetic because I couldn't believe what I was learning. And then I had so many crazy coincidences when I was doing this work and heavily into the research. One of them is in the book, in that journey poem that you're talking about, where my friend and I just were doing a road trip. She was coming home from Newfoundland, Canada, to Omaha, Nebraska. My friend, another poet, Jen Lambert, and we were via Montreal. I'd never seen Canada. I just wanted to see some trees. I really just had no hopes. She just needed to get home, and I was like her driving companion, and I was like, I get to see Canada for 5 minutes. So she just picked random hotels and random things, and the first random hotel she chose was in Montreal. And as we were 20 minutes away from Montreal, we knew we had one night to have one dinner in Montreal. So we would see Montreal for 10 seconds before it got dark and 20 minutes in the morning before we had to take off to the next destination. And we found out, oh my God, the city is named after the Virgin Mary. How is this? Wow, what an amazing coincidence. And then, wow, there's a major basilica in Montreal. We're not going to get to see it because we have no time. And we had a dog. We had Vinny, the giant, beautiful, very old geriatric dog with us in every hotel room. I mean, pobrecito. And we weren't going to go church shopping, obviously. And so we were lost trying to find the hotel, going all these French streets, and Siri speaking to us in French. And we were like, ah. And then, but I had my heart a little bit like, oh, it'd be cool if I could see that basilica. Her hotel was literally on the same block as the basilica.
Wow.
It's the same block. It was not even a whole block away. It was a half a corner away. And while we were lost going in 3 circles, and my friend was not getting lost in Canada. She had lived there for a year or more. She knew where to go. She just couldn't find the entrance to the hotel. And it made us go so many times until we finally got to a circle. And I was like, couldn't talk anymore. I mean,
I know Tiffany was like, audio.
You scared me. I thought we lost you for a second.
I was just couldn't speak. I was crying, and then I got to see this. But you know what's interesting about it? It's not just, oh, she's so magical. The artisans who built such places as the basilicas, what were they going through when they were making these elaborate, beautiful spaces, these architectural homes, right? For Our Lady, something good enough for her that brings miracles to everyone left and right. The artwork, all of the emphasis of the blend of indigenous life and the French Canadian life that's in this incredible basilica. It's absolutely supposed to be breathtaking, but the coinkadink of it was just absurd. And that has happened to me with basilicas, accidental, 4 other times where I did not plan them at all. And I was like, I'm in front of a basilica that I was hoping to see one day.
Yeah.
So I could do a whole show just about this journey.
I was like, I don't think it's accidental anymore. It's, it's the universe. That's maybe your, abuelita who's like guiding you constantly there. So that's how I see it.
I love that. And you're right. It started to become like, why is this happening? And how is this not an accident? How is it not an accident? And it's not.
Laura says that was certainly a diosidencia. There's a new one.
That's beautiful. I'm going to write that down. That's
Steal it, copyright it, done. Can't use it anymore. Well, let me ask, you do a beautiful job of painting the picture of all these basilicas that you coincidentally run into. And so the book deals with the spiritual, right? You're talking about La Virgen, right? Our Lady. But you connect it in a very earthly way. All the images are very earthly. Everything is very grounded. It's about human experience, the things that you're going through. It's a lot. There's a lot of human and not divine in the book, but still you're talking about, the divine. Talk to me a little bit about that choice, because it does ground it in a very relatable way, even though you're talking about, all the different forms that the Virgen has taken over millennia.
Yeah, I'm so in love with that question, because that is, we have our five senses, right? So our access to the world is through our five senses, and then we can reach some more ethereal, elevated, transformative echelons of thought. But what I keep discovering and kept discovering is that this, and it comes back from that early childhood Catholic teaching, that the divinity is inside of you. It's inside of the person you love. And that is what's divine here, right? It's not the invisible creature. It's literally in your DNA makeup. Your ability to love, your ability to see beauty, that's divinity. Your ability to care about another person, that's divinity to me anyway. And so by helping us and by me understanding her particularly as a human, but then she's also Coatlicue, she's also this mother creator figure with long history that goes for millennia. But to understand her as a human body does help me have compassion for her. And I think that is exactly what the message that a lot of painters were trying to create to a pre-literate populace in the Middle Ages and in the Renaissance, when people were looking at, they didn't have literacy, but they would learn about the stories through the paintings and the images. And what women would see, one girl up there, right? They had one woman to look at, and it was her. But what would they see? Oh, that is her belly. There she is swollen. That is her breast. There she is breastfeeding. That is her sad face when her son is dying. That is her sorrow. I connect to her. I feel for her. I want to be protected by someone like that. I understand how she feels. So there's this overlap that I think women experience when they see her. And if that invites us to think that you, Chibbi, and that you, Raquel, are like sacred beings here today, and every single person listening, then hell yeah.
Thank you. Oh my goodness. I'm like, I have so many questions. For this, I think let's keep on the topic of like motherhood and Coatlicue. Just because I can make connections to Gloria Dula, and I know that you really love her work, and she writes her work around that, right? And so I'm just like, yes, as this mother deity, this all creating deity. But then when you kind of went to like this, so I was thinking about Gloria Santola's question, and then I'm going towards how you were describing Coatlicue's body and the swollen breasts, and how and the stomach, and how she can relate to other people. And I want to now talk to you about your book, Le Monde La Dirty Laundry, and segue to that for a little bit too, because wow, you are literally airing like almost dirty laundry. I remember when I started reading, and I kind of reread it before today, and the intimacy, right, of this. And you do actually describe, losing a child and the miscarriages and like what your body, even though your body's swollen because it's preparing for this child that, you lost. Wow. I want to say, first of all, thank you, because I feel like a lot of people don't really write about that, and that's so hard. And, I'm not a mother, but, those are always concerns about, like, if I were to have a child, or like, I know people around me who experience that. So I think what I want to know is, like, why, so just the same way as these painters, or you're painting Cualique, like, but why did you decide to write these intimate, poems about yourself, your body, about motherhood and love and loss of love, and your family as well?
Well, I think it has to do with the genesis of poetry coming from a really strong emotional moment. A strong whack to the heart, a smashing of your head, a smashing of, like, crushing things. And I hate to say that that's the genesis for all of my creative work. It's not, but it's a part of it, because these really strong blows, it's not just that they throw pain at us, they throw questions at us. And they throw uncertainty at us, and uncertainty hurts as well. So one of the ways to handle them is to let them sit in your mind, and is to let them process through. As we were saying earlier, the power of telling a story is the power of healing yourself. And, we do have a lot of intergenerational trauma. We're aware of it. It's documented. And I have been listening to scholars talk about this and think about this. Christopher Garamona, particularly, who has done a lot of research with this. And I said, I asked him, is there a tracking of reversing some of those genetic injuries and changing this chemistry? And has that been documented? Is that storytelling healing? Is what I'm saying. Does it actually? And he said, actually, it does. And then he talked about Sandra Cisneros' own genetic study of herself that was done for her, beautifully done and thoroughly done. And they found all these storytellers behind her, that artists and storytelling behind her. And I thought, well, that's really interesting. So if we're healing ourselves by telling stories, we're actually changing our own body chemistry.
Wow.
And that's not necessarily the intent of some of these poems, especially Lavando La Dirty Laundry. It has my very first poem I've ever published, Zapatos Blancos. It's the first poem in the book. It's about my other abuelita, Raquel. And there again, I was just so struck by this question and the way she answered it when I said, "Why do you wear white shoes? Like, why do you like them?" She's like, "Oh, what's the deal?" And what an answer she gave me. White shoes make me feel young.
Yeah.
And I stuck with that answer for years. And it was so good to write about it and think about what made her think it was young. So I think discovery, and yeah, partly it's partly self-discovery, but it's also discovery of the questions that complicate my life or complicate my world.
Yeah.
So yeah, love is going to be one of them. Going through a unhealthy relationship, an unhealthy first marriage, and finding in that book, it tracks, my falling in love with my hubby, who's, still with me, thank goodness. And we always say anyway.
No, I really do appreciate it. It was just very intimate, and I definitely was going through the emotions with you. And I think I'm, especially with like the the journey of love. Like, it was very healing to be like all these heartbreakings and broken and this toxic, you know, going through toxic relationships to now trying to find someone to love me, right? Not complete me, but to share me and love me. I think I just wanted to say thank you. Just like these words in the book are healing, this conversation is healing. And
yeah,
really appreciate it.
I'm just struck by what you're talking about, like how storytelling literally changes your DNA, you know, and goes back to the first thing that, you know, you said that I wrote down, that I'm like, this is something to live. Language is how the body processes. So, so amazing. We could go on for hours. I feel I'm looking at my list. There's still like 7 questions that I want to ask. But I want to end on this idea of language. And I want to end on a lighter note, because we've talked a lot about grief, about sorrow, about healing, and all of that. So you are a highly educated woman. You know, you got 2 masters. You teach at a college. We could probably spend 3 hours talking about teaching during a pandemic, but we're not. But you have this. Is despise too strong a word, or not strong enough for what you like to call language snobs? You know, like, what does that term mean to you? Why is it counterproductive to advancing the accessibility of literature? And then to ask what Eric asked at the beginning, how important is grammar to poetry anyway?
A very complicated, great question with a complicated answer.
Sorry, I threw like 7 questions at you.
Right? Poetry. No, I love it. No, I'm talking about, is it Eric's question? Yeah. How important is grammar in poetry? One question. I mean, I teach Comp 1, so I have to grade my students and their essays on clarity, right? And we want clarity in poetry too, but it can also happen by mimicking the way we speak, and that is through broken grammar. I had one professor in my entire life, or really one person in my life I've ever known, whose every single sentence he spoke was a complete sentence, and he was my logic professor, Dr. Miller at UTSA. And I would listen, and I was like, oh my God, every sentence. How does he do that? No one does that. No one. So it definitely, we want to have some clarity in the poetry, but we don't want it. We don't need to follow any kind of formal grammar. And the language snobbery is super important to me, because the language snobs are going to be the people, in my opinion, are the people who weaponize grammar against other people, who use it to oppress other people, who use it to establish a caste system. No, we're not going to hire you. No, we're not going to rent to you. No, we're not going to, interact with you. We're not going to have this conversation any longer. Language oppression exists, and it's a real thing. And it removes access. It blocks brilliant people from getting into colleges, for example, on the SAT, which luckily now it's bye-bye test, bye-bye test, been questioned for a long time, should be questioned. Everyone knows it has its limit, but there are brilliant people who are blocked because of the language purists or the snobs that say, well, that's not really good English, or that's not correct English, or that's not correct Spanish, especially the snobs who would turn their nose at the blend of English and Spanish, whether it's a Puerto Rican English-Spanish blend, or a Dominican Republican English-Spanish blend, or a Mexican-American English, or a Tex-Mex English. I mean, there's so many varieties of the blend. And it creates for a world of rudeness, crudeness, dismissing of individuals. I find that very offensive, because the whole point of language is for us to communicate with each other. And that's why clarity is important. So yeah, there's some clarity issues that I would attend to in my own poetry. I make grammar mistakes in my own poetry all the time. Because I'm trying to capture my dialect, but I'm also trying to capture a tight, condensed version of my dialect. And so I'm going to break rules and include fragments, etc., and do first verb tense shifts, etc. But in my own home, my dad was one of these language purists. I was not allowed to speak English in Mexico, and I was not encouraged to speak Spanish here in the US. And he would not, if I did speak Spanish here, it was pure Spanish. He did not want me mixing. He grew up with a lot of these classist ideas about language, but he did tell me that he understood the border better because of what was happening to me as a 3-year-old when I was trying to learn both languages at the same time. And he loved the story, and he loved to tell me the story to help him. He said, this helped me understand why the border language is what it is. He said, you came up to one day and you said, quiero una boqueta. And I was asking for a bucket. So I knew bucket in English, and I knew quiero una, which means I want. And my dad was like, what the hell is going on with this kid that she's trying to, but he realized I was just putting words together that I knew, and that the brain, here's why it's so offensive. The human brain is it's an organ, right? Just like our heart is an organ, our tummy is an organ, your left shin is an organ, right? You have all these organs. Well, maybe it's not an organ. Your muscle system is an organ, whatever. But it's an organ, and what does it produce? It produces dreams, it produces words, it produces reasoning and knowledge. It's the excrement of the brain is our language. Literally, that's why your program is the best title in the world, Words and Shit. Literally the shit excreting out of our brain. It's going to be organic. It's going to be messy. And no one can tell me that English is pure, because English is a big, giant mess of vomit, starting with literally of the vulgar languages, right? They were considered the vulgar languages that came out of vulgar Latin, and those were Spanish, French, Romanian, Catalan, and then the language of the people, right? This language of the people that spoke, that were selling potatoes to each other and wax interacting with each other. It's the human languages they were speaking, right? Mm-hmm. So then it evolves into English, and it's still evolving. The English we speak today is not the English of 1950. It's not the English of 1970, and it's not the English of 1870, right? So it's organic. You can't say that this radish is wrong. You can't say English is wrong. It came out that way.
So great.
I can't think of a better sentiment to end on. Language is the excrement of the brain. Welcome to Words and Shit. I love it. I love it.
Awesome.
You're funny.
Well, this has been a fantastic hour and then some of conversation. Like I said, I think Raqui can agree. We could probably keep going.
I know. I feel like when we were going in, I was just like, oh my God, this conversation is going really fast. But before we go, we always invite our poets to at least close us off with one more poem. So if you can please bless us and make us, heal even more, and get closer to this healing session. Can you please share your words?
I would love to. I have one short poem, and I'm excited about this poem. It's something that after studying so many, it's going back to Virgin X, so much imagery with La Virgen, how she's been interpreted for millennia. I had a moment of awareness of what a witness is, right? There's the religious concept of witness, like testimony and witness. Well, this is a poem called Witness. That we make her a compiled human is understandable. Sandro Botticelli had Simonetta Vespucci, his Venus for Birth of Venus. Every blonde in the trials of Moses displayed in the Sistine Chapel. The girl, the ones whose eyes beg for a kiss in the temptations of Jesus. Both Flora, goddess of flowers for Christ's sake, and the gazing, camera-hungry flower gatherer in Primavera. Simonetta was crowned Grace, Madonna Magnificat, had himself buried at her married feet when he died. How else to imagine divinity than with the faces we love? It's what we do. Bear the ephemeral, worship what is left.
Wow.
Round of applause. Y'all need to show some love in the comment section. They are.
Right.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for being on the show with us. Thank you for sharing your words. You are absolutely just pure sunshine, pure light. I just want to say luz, right? The same luz and like warmth that we find in like our saints and our, Virgen. I feel that from this conversation, and definitely this conversation has made me feel like home. So thank you so much, Natalia.
Thank you so much for inviting me and being so much fun on this program and the show, and just keep it up. I'm so looking forward to watching more of them, and y'all are doing an amazing job. And thank you for donating to Macondo, a great writers organization that has nurtured me and loved me and taken care of me, and of course sending me out into the world to connect more writers to each other. So thank you if you donate to Macondo. It's a great, great cause.
Awesome. And I know we have it displayed on the screen right now, but for anybody that's listening to the podcast after this live show, if people want to find your books, if people want to find their work, where can they go to get a copy of your amazing work?
It's on Amazon. The Lavanda La Dirty Laundry certainly is. And then Virgin X comes through my publisher, Finishing Line Press. So if you Google it, the link will take you to there, and just order a copy. It has a hardcover version and a softcover version. And I'm super excited about that. And I hope to have another full-length Virgin book unfold in the near future.
Yes.
Awesome.
Can't wait to get it.
Thank you so much, Natalia.
Thank you so much. Have a great night, Raquel, Chibbi, and everyone else. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Raquel, sometimes I struggle with kind of like wrapping up the conversation and like bringing it down to like a single word or feeling, but not tonight. Not tonight. Tonight, I just feel blessed. Punto final. And end stop. Hard done. I just feel blessed from this conversation. There was somebody that was watching that's in the workshops that I'm teaching, and Lynn was saying, I want to quote him exactly, I needed to hear this tonight.
Yes.
I needed to hear this tonight. I think we all needed Natalia's words, both in her poems and in everything that she broke down in our conversation. Like, I need my soul needed tonight.
No, I definitely feel this exact same way. If it's healed, definitely feel like home. Like, you have no idea. I think I love San Antonio because of these magical mujeres, right? These elders, like people that I've learned from, and it's just puro magic, really. They're really magical.
Puro magic, puro 210, puro 956, puro South Texas. I'll take it. Well, let's thank some people and get on out of here, because some of us have dinners to eat, make drinks to consume. Long journeys into New Jersey to traverse.
I know, and we're in different time zones. So let's do this. So again, we want to say thank you to the audience, and if without you, we really wouldn't have a show. So thank you for coming back every week. If you are completely new, thank you for coming and showing support for our poets today. Please come check us out. We're cool, pretty cool people, I think, and we bring cool poets. Check us out. And thank you for our production crew. We have Dominique, who just behind the scenes. She's amazing. One day she's going to come up here and we're going to just really give her a round of applause. But till then, because she's shy, we appreciate you. And then, of course, for our intro song that you heard is Chris Conde. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Chibby.
Yeah, and whether this is your first time or you've been with us before, make sure you follow us on Instagram and Twitter. It is Words and Shh on Instagram and Twitter, so you can find out about all the amazing poets that we still have to come in this season. We're only halfway through with season 2, and there's so many good poets left on this roster, but there was also poets that have come before and in season 1. So if people want to catch up on past episodes, what can they do, Raquel?
You can definitely watch our past episodes on YouTube or anywhere you can go and get your podcast. So after this has done, you can follow us on YouTube and it'll be already uploaded. But yeah, go listen to us and go tell your friends that we have an amazing podcast.
And subscribe, please, and rate and review wherever you can. Next week, so excited for next week. Our guest is going to be a recently published Poetry Prize winner, Josh Wynn. Josh Wynn is joining us next week, y'all. He is getting his PhD out of the University of Mississippi. I don't know if that's the exact university, but I know it's in Mississippi. He's from Houston, Texas, fellow Texan. Just won a chapbook contest and won a full-length poetry contest that's going to be published soon. I can't wait to have him on his show. So come in next week, same time, same place, 7:30 Central Standard Time on the Write Art Out Facebook page or the Words and Shit YouTube page. And also thank you to Right About Now for allowing us to broadcast on their Facebook channel as well, so that we can get these amazing poets in front of more audiences that they deserve. So that's that.
Without that, thank you so much. Buenas noches. Good night. Y bendiciones.
Bendiciones. Stay safe out there. Sagrado corazón de buen camino, que lleguen muy bien a nuestro destino. Okay, I butchered that. Whatever.
Gracias. I felt it.